Hi, it's Jamie Dockery, Fayette County Extension Agent for Horticulture, and I've been asked for Pumpkin Week to show you guys some fun little flower things, floral stuff you can do with pumpkins. So that's what we're going to do today. But before we jump into all the actual hard work of this, let's talk about what we're doing. Well, we're making simple floral arrangements, but you don't have to break the bank. Yes, you can, and these are wonderful. You can go out and buy sunflowers and mums and all sorts of other beautiful stuff for not a lot of money this time of year. So if you don't have access to a garden or a fence row somewhere or a ditch line, this works perfectly well. But just right under our own noses in our yards are things like this beautiful sugar maple foliage that can be used. This is some sort of, I believe, little laurel that we found that has beautiful leaves. We have different ornamental grasses, foxtail and river oats type stuff. Here's some things I grew in the garden that you probably won't find, but there's some amaranthus. These are actually insect-infested heads from coneflower. Goldenrod, you should still be able to find the remnants of goldenrod. More ornamental grasses. This is a millet I grew, a cut flower variety, and an ornamental. Celosia, coxcomb, zinnias. You've got all of this or access to it, so just think out of the box. You can do this on any scale. I mean, here we have more of a traditional larger pumpkin arrangement. Over here we have a tiny little tabletop thing that is going to be more succulents and little small scale, so if you need something inside. I'm going to show you two methods today. We're going to actually put this inside a pumpkin, and another one I'm just going to stick some of the floral foam we'll be working with on top of a pumpkin. So those are the two approaches, a small arrangement and a large arrangement, but you can just as easily put the foam on a big pumpkin and stick it in a little pumpkin. They're interchangeable. This is just what I'm doing for you today. So just get out, do some scouting, see what beautiful things. They don't even have to be living. You can do some neat stuff with brown grasses and dead twigs and maybe a little pumpkin or two. So just let your imagination run wild and have some fun with this. So we'll get right into the brass tacks of how you go about it and show you how to do a couple of these things actually on film. Okay, now I'm going to show you these two approaches. This is actually in a pumpkin, and we stuck the foam into the pumpkin for this little succulent arrangement. I got to be honest with you, succulents are cute. They hardly have a workable stem. So if you go this route, you got to be really careful and poke some holes in advance. You can't just stick them in like you do the stiffer flowers. So I'm going to do something similar, but we're going to go on top of the pumpkin. This one has a nice straight stem, so it's going to be ideal. And I want that stem fairly long because I'm going to use it to help secure my foam and keep it balanced. So this is Floral Foam. It is a dry foam product. They make this for dry arrangements as well as wet. We want the kind for wet because it'll soak up 3-4 times its weight in moisture and then release that to the flowers. So it not only gives you something that you can stick flowers in at any angle, which really makes it more flexible, but also will keep those flowers fresh more so than some other things we could do. So I've pre-cut this one to a smaller piece or chunk, and I am just going to center that over my stem and push it down until I get snug with pumpkin. This should be a nice narrow green floral tape. To be perfectly honest, I didn't want to dig through 12 boxes of Christmas stuff to find my floral tape, so we're pretending with duct tape. You would have the green stuff, or you can use a duct tape. We're trying to hide the, maybe I should have had floral foam. Duct tape is fine. We're not going to use so much of it, and our goal with this arrangement is to hide it with flowers anyway. So let me see if I can convince this to give me a tiny little strip like I want. Not so well, folks. Okay, I'll tell you what. We're going to pretend that's a little narrower than it is, but this would stretch over the top, and you would just tie it down. You probably don't want that much showing, so we're going to stick some foliage and stuff. But it won't stick to the wet foam, but it will stick to the side. So this will be a longer piece. I've got enough stability with my stem. We're just going to pretend I did that taping step and get on down the road. So obviously you want your flowers to be in proper ratio to this, so we're not going to do something huge on a tiny pumpkin. We're going to keep it in scale. So here I'm just going to start adding things. There's a fairly easy way to do this, and ultimately we're just burying the foam. Anywhere you get half done and you can look and see a big gap with foam, you stick a flower there. It's not difficult. I'm going to start with a little goldenrod just to get us some filler going, and I'm going to kind of go up top and essentially the points of a cross just to kind of get those lines established and get things going in those directions. I'm already starting on too large of a scale, so these are going to have to be cut down and be much tighter than this to not get away from the size of our pumpkin. And these goldenrod are kind of long, so it might not be the best thing. You can change the angle and change the length a little bit too. So if I go a little more upright with these, they don't seem to block the pumpkin as much. And we'll get a few of these tucked around. After I get some basis or filler, just kind of a line I'm going to work with, I will then start to fill in. And it's probably easier to start with your larger flowers or larger items first. Get those evenly positioned. Let's do well, that's so small, I don't know if those sunflowers will work. So let's get some mums in here for color. And maybe some of these green hydrangeas. These are hydrangea stems we cut from the landscape. We have some pink ones and some green ones. And again, for something this size, I've got to have little short stems. So these will give you a lot of mileage in terms of hiding the mechanics of your centerpiece. But I'm just going to add a few of these around the side. Hydrangeas are wonderful because they're big and bulky. They hide lots of foam. And that can be the biggest challenge with some of this, is how do you get all that foam out of sight? So I'll do some pink ones later in the larger pumpkin. But we can start with something like this, and then we're going to start filling in with some more colorful things. I may go a little, I tend to want to work with browns and golds and fall colors this time of year and oranges, but just for fun, since we've got that lime green in there, I might take this a more non-traditional route and do some greenish yellows and some stuff like this. We'll probably, before it's over, I probably can't rest until I get some orange in it, but we're going to see how far I get with this. And I also had, I didn't love them for fall. I'd set them aside and wasn't planning to use them, but all of a sudden, the way this is going, I think I don't hate these little green mums. And if a tiny arrangement, you may cut this stuff down to nearly nothing. I mean, that's, in larger floral work, you would never want little 2-inch stems, but for this I do. So you just want to keep everything relative to what you're working in. And I'm going to be sticking a lot of flowers, so we're just going to kind of get you all there a little faster, but I'm just going to keep doing more of the same until I get a more pleasing look. Sometimes when you're adding something there's only going to be 1 or 2 of, you may want those at different heights. I don't want these grasses to be a matched pair. And odd numbers look really, really nice too. If you can think in terms of 3s, 5s, 7s, oftentimes 1 or 2 things just kind of look a little too balanced in a centerpiece. I'll be honest with you, often these things kind of get away from me. I did not envision this being this large, but here I am, and I'm just going to roll with it. Okay, I see one last little chunk of foam that's bothering me. So I'm going to put one more mum. Where did he go? In there like that. So it's fairly straightforward and simple. There's not necessarily some advanced skill. I'm a little better because I've had a lot of practice, but ultimately, you just keep playing until you get something you like. And having said that, the foam is not totally forgiving. If you puncture it 1,000 times, it's going to be hard to keep sticking stuff in, so try to get as much bang for your buck with each thing you put in there. And honestly, the bigger you make an arrangement, the more materials it will take. So since this one got a little bigger quickly than I meant for it to, it's taking quite a bit more stuff than I would have had I made it much, much smaller. I was envisioning something about this size, and you can see how quickly that went south on me, but two totally different looks, both sort of similar. This one, because we haven't cut the pumpkin, would be wonderful for indoors and would hold up for some time. Succulents will hold up for some time. Next, we're going to cut a pumpkin, but be aware, if you cut this pumpkin, it's just like carving a jack-o'-lantern, and if you want it as a table centerpiece, make sure you don't mind some fruit flies and gnats buzzing around the table, because that comes with cut pumpkin flesh. So you decide which approach you want to take based on where you're using your centerpiece. Now we're going to do maybe a slightly easier thing, and this is a larger pumpkin. This can happen with any size pumpkin, but this is going to be a nice one to work with because I'm using a whole block of foam, because you'll find when you start doing this, if you have a little foam sticking up on top, it gives you more flexibility. You can stick things in from all angles instead of just vertical, and if your foam is way down in your pumpkin, you're going to be more upright. And I like the ability to do this. So I'm going to cut a hole big enough for the foam. I mean, if you really want to get specific, you can kind of make it a rectangular hole. Every time I take a knife to a pumpkin, I automatically think jack-o'-lantern, and I think I've got to make it round. Also, this is a pretty sharp knife. Pumpkins are hard-shelled. They wiggle a lot, and the knife you need for this can easily cut you. So if you're younger, you may want to get your parents to help with this part, just to be on the safe side. But I'm going to lift that out, and then we're going to get into pumpkin gutting. I'm pretty sure everyone knows how this works, so we won't spend a lot of time on this part. Okay, when gutting pumpkins, and I don't know if that's a proper term, but I love the term gutting because it sounds kind of gory for Halloween. But a spoon is your friend. A really big spoon is your best friend, because if you go around this correctly, it can be as simple as this. When you're done, clean pumpkin. However, if you're young and you enjoy squishing around in pumpkin guts, you might prefer to do this by hand. I know many children enjoy gutting pumpkins and pulling all the stringy innards out. So I think this is a little smaller than my foam. It's ideal to have this snug so that it doesn't wiggle around when you're doing your flowers into it. I don't know if this will fit or not, but I'm dropping the whole block in here. I want a little sticking up, and I have choked a little bit, but because I don't need the lid, I can salvage this. You can use any kind of wedge. You could use another piece of foam for that matter, but I happen to have a piece of pumpkin. And ironically, it's the piece of pumpkin that came from there, so it matches. Okay, this is what we're working with, and now it's really not that different than what we did the previous time. So we're just going to start sticking things. Okay, two things I've approached differently with this one, just to show you can. Previously, we started with the bright flower components, spaced them, and then added our fillers. In this case, I've filled with everything. Quite honestly, that first arrangement got so bright and birthday looking, I had to bring this back to Halloween. I think of Halloween as dark and spooky and fun, and I want to do something a little blacker, more dark, maybe sinister a little bit. And there you have it. This is my darker take on a Halloween centerpiece. And actually, just personally, I like that one a little bit better than some of the others. But you can see how limitless the options are. You can do small and very architectural and kind of strange, like this little succulent planter we did in the small pumpkin. Here's another small pumpkin that we put foam on top. That got way too happy birthday for me. Looks like an FTD bouquet. Here is probably my favorite of the whole thing, because that really looks fall and dark and Halloween to me. And then here's just kind of everything but the kitchen sink, but also in fall colors. So let your imagination guide you. If you like pink or purple, make it pink or purple. It's your pumpkin. You can do whatever you want, and that's what's so much fun about this. No one has to tell you what to add to your pumpkin. You get to figure it out. Get out, spend some time in the outdoors. It's beautiful outside right now. Find some neat things. If you need to, purchase a few more, and just have a blast making your pumpkin centerpiece for outside, on the porch, inside in the house, whatever you think sounds fun with your pumpkin arrangement.